Righto, Year 10. There is one question on your paper that requires a little bit more work, and it's a non-monic quadratic trinomial that you need to solve by completing the square. There aren't any questions like this in your textbook, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one up. Here we go. Here's some non-monics. So I'm going to take question 16 here because it's much like the one in your textbook, and I might do A and D. So we'll have a look at those two. So the first thing about completing the square, and I'm just making sure, I'm just getting the answers up so they're there. Question 16, there we go. All right, so 2x squared plus 4x minus 1. So here we go. 2x squared plus 4x, was it minus 1 or plus 1? Minus 1. 2x squared plus 4x minus 1 equals 0. Well, because this is an equation, what I can do is I can divide everything by something. So I'm just going to divide everything by 2. And all of a sudden, I will have a non-monic. And I was hoping I'd get a fraction there, but that'll be all right. That'll give me x squared plus 2x minus a half equals 0. Now do the same. X squared plus 2x equals a half. Halve the 2 and square it. So a half of 2 is 1. Square 1 is 1. Add it. So add 1. Add 1. This becomes x plus 1 all squared, and this becomes 3 on 2. Square root both sides, so we get x plus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of 3 on 2. Now, minus the 1. Now, I would be happy with that. But in the back of the book, they've rationalised that surd. They've rationalised that surd by multiplying that fraction by root 2 on root 2, which doesn't change it. And by doing that, they get minus 1 plus or minus, well, root 3 times root 2 is root 6, and root 2 times root 2 is 2. And that's the answer they got in the back, but I would have been happy if you just stopped there. Now, that's not exactly what I wanted. I wanted one that was going to help us solve, and they all bump out really nicely. So I'm going to make one up. I'm going to make one up here that's similar to your textbook, to your assignment. So let's go 2x squared plus 5x minus 1 equals 0. Now I know that this equation has solutions because it's a positive parabola and the y-intercept is going to be -1, so it's below the x-axis. So what do? Well, I do exactly the same thing that I did before. I need to make it a monic. So I'm going to divide everything by 2. I'm going to divide everything by 2. So when I do that, I get x squared plus 5 on 2x minus a half equals 0. I add that a half to the other side, x squared plus 5 on 2x equals a half. Now here's the tricky bit. I got 5 on 2. So a half of 5 on 2. Now you can do that on your calculator, go 5 on 2 divided by 2, but you should know half of 5 on 2, half times 5 on 2 equals 5 on 4. Now, 5 on 4 squared equals 25 on 16. So I'm going to add 25 on 16. Now please remember why you're doing that. You're doing that because you need to complete the square, and you need to halve the coefficient of the x and square it. So now I've got x plus 5 on 4. Remember? That's what half of that coefficient of x squared equals, now I've got to get common denominators here. We'll have to multiply that by 8 top and bottom, so I'll get 8 on 16 plus 25 on 16. I'm going to keep this here, x plus 5 on 4 squared equals 33 on 16. And now it's just a matter of square rooting both sides. I won't need that. Square root both sides. X plus 5 on 4 equals plus or minus root 33 over root 16. Could have done that as one whole fraction, but you don't have to. X plus 5 on 4 equals plus or minus root 33 on 4. Now, isn't that wonderful? Because we now have common denominators, I can just minus that 5 on 4, or minus 5 on 4 plus or minus root 33 on 4. It's one big fraction. I can write it with a common denominator. Minus 5 plus or minus root 33 on 4. So it sounds complicated, but it's not really when you go through the process. And remember the process. Get rid of the coefficient of the x squared by dividing everything through. It's an equation, so that won't change everything as long as you do it to both sides. Get your new equation, take the constant term to the right-hand side. Halve the coefficient of the x, so halve the 5 on 2, did it over here, halve it, square it, and add that to both sides, 25 on 16. Remember, when you write the square, the perfect square, it has to be x plus a half, what you halve, so 5 on 4 in this case. Do this bit over here. I do that with the calculator. Square root both sides. Remember, it's plus or minus. You will find that you get the same denominator on both sides if you've kept your fractions improper. Or even, yeah. And then just make it one big fraction. And that's it. Now, there's only one question like that. There's only one question like that on your assignment. Good luck with that one.